In this video, I'm going to explain to you how you can make it to any top business school in the world. If you want to do any master's program, if that's in India or if it's abroad, you will definitely find value in this video. But especially if you want to do a business school master's, like an MIM, an MBA, a master's in marketing, master's in finance, entrepreneurship, real estate, accounting, data analytics, then this video will be absolutely perfect for you. Why should you listen to me? Following this exact strategy, I was able to make it to ESSEC Business School, the number 3 ranked MIM in the world, and Cornell University, the number 9 ranked MBA in the world. And I did this with a very average profile. Honestly, not even average. My GPA was 6.74 out of 10. My work experience was poor. I had one internship in an unknown marketing firm and another full-time job in another unknown marketing firm. So technically, I had more than a year of work experience, but it wasn't the best work experience at all. My extracurriculars were average as well. I never took part in any clubs, in any associations in college, no debates, no Model United Nations. I just had a high level in sports. But any academic extracurriculars, zero. Everything I should have done during school and my undergraduate degree to make my profile better, I did not do. But everything I could control afterwards, like my GMAT, my essays, my application, my research, I did all of this in the best possible way. And it worked. I was able to get interviews with 5 of my top 7 schools. And in the end, I got admits from 4 of them. Since then, I've started Career with Fazil and I've helped a lot of students make it to their target universities. And through this process, I've learned exactly what admission committees are looking for. I'm going to go into detail. I'm going to talk about the smaller things which make a big difference to your application and things which students very often overlook, which I think is the reason they aren't able to make it to their target schools. Just one disclaimer before we start. This is not going to be a flashy video. I'm not going to use edits which spike your dopamine, but it will be packed with value. If you want to keep watching the video, all I want from you is your full attention. Preferably, you also have a notebook in front of you to make notes. Leave everything else, leave your phone, forget about your boyfriend, your girlfriend, and for the next 15-20 minutes, I want your full attention. Trust me, it will be worth it. Before we start creating our application, before we create our resume, we write our SOP, we spend days, weeks preparing these things. The first thing we need to do is understand one thing. What do universities want? What are universities looking for? What is the ideal candidate for a university? Once we understand this, every single aspect of your application will become a million times better. Understanding this could mean the difference between you getting admission and you not getting any admits. It's as simple as that. So what are universities looking for? It all comes down to one very basic thing. Will this candidate be successful in his or her professional life? This is the most important thing for business schools. Business school rankings, the alumni network. The attractiveness of a business school lies in the success and the results of its graduates. If they think that you'll be able to get a good job after graduation, you're most likely to get in. It's as simple as that. And if you think about it, that's exactly what they are testing with your application. They first ask you for your prior work experience with your CV. They are then checking your aptitude with your GMAT. And finally, they're seeing your plans for the future with your SOP. Based on all of this, they are making a decision. Can this person get the job he or she wants on the basis of their prior experience and their aptitude? That's basically what they are testing with your application. Every single component of your application is testing this one thing. Once you understand this, it's a cheat code to getting an admit. Every single decision you make in your application, every single word you write, every single thing you do needs to be optimized to answer this question. Will this person be successful? Yes, I will be successful because of these reasons. Every single thing you do must be optimized for this. Keep this in mind when you're applying, write it down and never forget it. Once you understand this, that's when you can move on to your application. Your resume is going to be the most important part of an application. It's a fact. A lot of people might say your essays are more important, your GMAT is more important, but no, your resume is the most important part. Just think about it. If you have the best resume, you have the best work experience, you went to the best universities for your undergrad, you have all of this, but your essays are not good, you still have a very good chance of getting into a top business school. But think about it the other way around. If you have a poor resume, you don't have any brand names, no challenging positions, no proof of leadership, even if your essays are great, your plans are solid, it's still going to be hard for you to get into a good master's program. Remember what we spoke about earlier. What do universities want? Universities want future success. And nothing is better at determining future success than past success. And that is why the resume is so important. So now that you've understood why the resume is so important, let's talk about how to make it so much better. This isn't like the other components of your application. This takes time to build. If you have the time, if you have a few years before you apply, if you're still in school or in undergrad, I would highly advise you two things. Number one, get good brand names on your CV. Your CV is a proof of your skills, a proof of your aptitude, a proof of everything. Business schools want good brand names on your CV to give you admission. And later, companies will want a good business school name on your CV to give you a job. It might not be fair, it might not be ideal, but it is what it is. It's a reality. But what if you can't get brand names on your CV? This was me. I didn't have the best brand names on my CV. My work experience was not the best. If this is the case for you and you can't get good brand names on your CV for whatever reason, then what you need to focus on is your impact. Your impact in whatever you've done. If that's internships, if that's in university positions, if that's in full-time jobs, anything. You have to show that in your time in these places, you were able to create an impact. And the best way to show your impact is to quantify. Every single sentence on your resume must be quantified. Instead of saying, I did data analysis for this one product, you can say, I saved the company 5 lakh rupees, increased efficiency by 25% by doing data analysis for this product. Quantify, quantify, quantify. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be 100% accurate. Even schools know that a lot of the times it's not accurate. But again, this is just the way the world works. The easiest way to improve your resume is to just follow a template. LBS, London Business School, actually releases a template it wants its students and applicants to follow. Mold your CV according to this template and you'll be good. Once you're done with your resume, that's when you can move on to your SOP. What is an SOP? It's very simple. An SOP is basically an essay which explains to the admissions committee a few things. Number one, what you've done in your career. Number two, what you want to do in your career. And number three, how the university will help you in that journey. It's basically a story you say about your professional life, and it needs to follow a format of a story. Keep in mind, yes, this is a personal statement, but don't get too personal. That's one mistake which I've seen a lot of times. Don't talk about your traumas, your depression, very personal stories. Stay professional and talk about your specific achievements, specific goals. You shouldn't talk about saving the world, changing everything. It's not how it works. Be specific and be concise. Most SOPs you see will have a similar outline, and I would recommend you to follow this outline just to have some structure and tell your story efficiently. Keep in mind, this is not a creative writing competition. Again, this is one mistake which I've seen a lot of times. It's not an autobiography. It's a short essay with a clear purpose. Yes, you can be creative and you should be creative with it, but always come back to what I told you in the start. Your goal is to convince the admissions committee that you will be able to land a job in the future, that you will do well in your professional life. So talking about everything in your life, your autobiography might not make the most sense. Also, your story needs to make sense. For example, if you've done a bachelor's in music, it will be very hard to convince the university that you'll be able to land a finance job in the future. On the other hand, if you've done a bachelor's in mathematics, a job in finance would make a lot of sense. And sometimes honesty is not the best policy. Yeah, you have to be honest as much as possible, but your goal is to get into the university. If you've done a bachelor's in psychology and you want to start working in finance, maybe you don't say that. Maybe what makes more sense in your story is that you studied psychology and you fell in love with consumer behavior, how consumers make decisions, and you were fascinated by this topic. Maybe you did a research project about consumer behavior. Maybe you did an internship at Reliance in the marketing team and you were able to see how psychology and your expertise in psychology was able to contribute in a company's success. This proved to you how important psychology is in marketing and how important psychology is in the business world. And now you want to combine your knowledge of psychology and your passion for marketing and do well in the business world. You see how this story just comes together, explains your past experience, your goals, your decisions, and explains this in a very beautiful way. Okay, now you must be saying, okay, Fazil, you've explained to us how you need to think about your story. But how do you write a good SOP? Don't follow a template. There are thousands of templates on the internet, and even your friends must have told you, I was able to get into Oxford with this SOP. Take this SOP, even you'll be able to get into Oxford. That's not how it works. That SOP got them into Oxford because everything else in their profile backed up that SOP. So don't follow a template. Don't copy anyone else's SOP. Yes, you should follow an outline, but in the end, your SOP has to be you. Now, a lot of people ask me, can I use ChatGPT to write my SOP? Guys, finding out if an essay was written by AI is very, very easy, and admission committees will immediately know if that SOP was written by AI, and that's an immediate rejection. If you can't put in the effort to write an SOP by yourself, to write an essay by yourself, they will assume that you will not work hard in the university as well. You will not do well in your life. That's an assumption which they will make, and you will immediately get rejected. Yes, you can use ChatGPT, but use it for very specific functions like doing research, framing a structure of the essay, brainstorming, thinking about ideas. You can use AI for all these reasons, but to actually write your essay, do not use ChatGPT. You can use AI to help with your decision making and thinking, but in the end, your words need to be written by you. I've created a 7-step essay writing framework which can help you in your overall decision making and your process. And this is what it is. First step always needs to be introspection. You need to analyze what you've done in school, in college, your entire life. Step 2 is goal setting. You need to understand your goals and what you want to do in your professional life. Step 3 needs to be thinking of a link between what you've done and what you want to do. In the previous example about psychology and consumer behavior, and psychology, that link was the person working at Reliance, where he or she learned about the importance of psychology in marketing. That was the link. Step 4 needs to be doing research about the school you're applying to and understanding how that school will help you reach your goals. Step 5 needs to be reading other good essays which are again available online everywhere. Read these sample SOPs, see how people have done their storytelling, how they express their information in a beautiful, coherent way. Read 5 to 10 SOPs, understand their strengths, and that's it. Once you've done all of these things, you've made some notes, that's when you can start writing. Once you've done that, once you've finished writing, that's when you can share your SOPs, preferably with people who have already gone and studied in the universities you're applying to. That would be absolutely optimal. Once you've shared it with 3 to 4 people and you've gotten feedback, that's when you can proofread it for grammar and everything else. Please don't be that person who writes the wrong university name in their SOP. Guys, this happens. It happens way too often. And if you watch this video and make that mistake, I'll shut down my YouTube channel, I promise. Once you've done all these steps, that's when you know you have a good SOP. Moving on to the GMAT or the GRE. Most good schools will require a standardized test, a GMAT or a GRE. If a school doesn't require a GMAT, it could be a red flag. I would say the GMAT is about 25% of your profile, and it serves 2 purposes. Number 1, it proves to the admissions committee that you're actually good at academics. Especially if your GPA is bad, your GMAT becomes extremely important, much more than 25%. Number 2 is that it allows the university to increase the average competence of the cohort, of the batch. And higher the average GMAT of the batch, the better and more reputed the school will be. the higher it will be on the rankings. And if you know business schools, all they care about is rankings. So getting a good GMAT score, a good GRE score is important, but it's not worth spending years over. The biggest mistake I see people making with the GMAT is just spending too much time. I believe that in life, most things are a marathon, not a sprint, but not the GMAT. The GMAT is something which you need to finish as soon as possible. See what the average GMAT is in the schools you are targeting. And if you have a good GPA in your undergrad, then get that average and move on. If you don't have a good GPA in your undergrad, then yes, spend some more time and get 20 to 30 points above the average of the schools you're targeting. I personally spent one entire month preparing for the GMAT. I did a full-on sprint and was able to get a 750, which is a 98th percentile score. I needed a 750 because my undergraduate GPA was so bad, but yours might not be so bad. And for you, a 680, 690, even 700 can be okay. Identify your target score. Identify your current level by doing a practice test. Identify which resources you want to use and move on. Finish it as soon as possible. If you want to know which resource to use, I would highly recommend Target Test Prep. That's what I used to get a 750 in just 1 month, and that's what worked for me. And I really believe it was an important reason that I was able to get that score in such a short time frame. Honestly, the best part about it is that it has everything you need in one place, and everything there is of the best quality. Be it actual study material, practice problems, error logs, doubt clearing sessions, it has all of it in one single platform, and everything is of the best quality. And that just makes your entire process so much more efficient. It also customizes your study plan on the basis of your strengths and weaknesses. So if you're already strong in one section and weak in another section, it's going to push you to get better in that weak section. And that has a massive impact on your score. When I first started preparing, my quant was already fairly strong, but my verbal was quite weak. But by the end of my prep, my quant as well had increased a little bit, but my verbal had increased by a lot. I would highly advise you to study in as short of a time frame as possible and not waste months and years of your life. And to make sure you're studying optimally in such a short time frame, TTP is the best option. Watch my other GMAT videos to know exactly how I studied and to get a free study plan for yourself. And if you want a 5-day free trial of TTP, hit the link in the description below. Part 4 is the LOR. The letter of recommendation is basically a letter from your professors or someone you've worked with about you. That's it. It's a very simple thing, but it's extremely underrated. Just think about it. The LOR is the only part of your entire application where someone else is going to speak on your behalf. It's the only part of your application where it's not you who is praising yourself and talking about yourself, but it's someone else you worked with, like a professor or a colleague who's doing that for you. And having other people validate what you're saying about yourself is extremely important. You can say you're hardworking, you can say you're a great leader, but if people around you are not saying the same thing, it doesn't really mean much. The problem with the SOP is that most students write it themselves and then give it to the person who is submitting, and then that person submits it. And that's what happens. That's what everyone I know has done. And even most universities know that this is happening. I personally don't think this is the best thing to do, but I understand most people won't have the time to write a full essay about you. So yeah, there might not be any other option. There's just 3 things you have to keep in mind with the LOR. Number 1, your LOR should not contradict or oppose anything which your SOP and your resume is saying. Your entire application functions as a whole. Everything needs to be linked. So of course, your LOR should not contradict anything which your SOP is saying, which your resume is saying, which any other aspect of your application is saying. It needs to add to whatever you're saying and whatever your story is. And number 2, it needs to focus on your softer skills like leadership, like teamwork, like communication. It is very hard to convince a person that you're a good leader, that you're a good communicator. And honestly, nowadays, everyone says that they are a good leader, they're a good communicator, they are good at teamwork. But no one really believes that if you say it yourself. So you need another person to say it for you. For example, if you want to work in marketing, your professor should not say that you aren't interested in marketing. It shouldn't contradict what you've said in your SOP. It should also say how you do really well in teams, how you're a natural leader, you're able to bring people closer together and get them to work together. As long as your SOP has these two components, you're good. And number 3, it needs to have examples. This is one of the most important things. Wherever possible, in every component of your application, try to include as many examples as you can. This will be the most important thing. So if you want to show that you're a good communicator, talk about how you're able to handle multiple clients and get the project completed. If you want to talk about efficiency, talk about an example where you were able to finish a project in a much shorter time frame than what was expected. Instead of just saying these things, I'm an efficient person, I'm a good communicator, you have to show them through examples. If you do these 3 things well, you will have a good LOR. And finally, part 5, the interview. The point of the interview is just to confirm what you've already said in your application. The interviewer just wants to confirm that you are that same person who wrote that application, that you didn't lie about every single thing in your resume, in your SOP, in your application. Every school's interview process is different. Some do it with just faculty, some do it with just alumni, and some do it with both faculty and alumni. The goal is to keep your answers crisp, give examples with everything, and honestly, general interview tips will apply. If you're confused about how to structure your answers, follow the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result. You first talk about the situation you were in and give the entire context of the situation. You then talk about what task you wanted to do and you were entrusted to do. You then talk about what action you took. And finally, you talk about the results of your action. Situation, task, action, result. I would highly advise you to go through your application, your resume, your SOPs, your LinkedIn, everything. Just become an expert about your application. Technically, you should already be an expert, but if not, just go through it and become an expert. And you should do well. Again, the primary purpose of the interview is to see fit, to see if you will be able to be a part of an international cohort of your course, if you will be able to survive within an international environment, if you will be able to communicate with people of other cultures, if you'll be able to lead a team and you'll be able to be a part of a team. That's basically what they are testing. If you do give any examples about your previous experiences or any previous achievements, then quantify them and show your impact. And that's it. If you do all of these things well, then you should be able to make it to your target school.
And that's it. If you follow these points as well as possible, you have the best chance of making it to your dream business school. If you found any value in this video, make sure you drop it a like and make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'll keep helping you make the right decisions about your career and it'll be a win-win for both of us.